Everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. I recently shared with you guys the fact that the judge presiding over the Michigan governor's kidnapping case denied a motion that was filed by the defense attorneys to try to dismiss the case based on their claims of entrapment. Well, it appears that that decision must have scared one of the alleged kidnappers because he just agreed to cooperate with the prosecutors and to plead guilty. So 27-year-old Kaleb Franks says he'll plead guilty to the charge of conspiracy to kidnap, and he'll testify in the trial against the remaining defendants. Now, Franks is the second person to take a plea deal and agree to testify against his fellow accused kidnappers. And according to the Daily Beast, he plans to testify about his group's plan to, quote, black bag politicians. That doesn't sound nice. So anyway, Franks, in his plea agreement, has to stipulate, quote, the defendant was not entrapped or induced to commit any crimes by these individuals. That, of course, is because the defense, like I said, is trying to say, oh, these guys were entrapped. This was all the government's doing. Had it not been for those bad old informants, they would have never even conceived of such an idea. Well, in total, there were 6 men that were accused of this kidnapping and murder plot. And this was, of course, involving Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. The first man to flip, though, was Ty Garbin. So this is not the first guy. Garbin pleaded guilty last year, and in exchange for his cooperation and his testimony against the others, he's going to be spending only 6 years in prison. The charge to which Franks is pleading guilty to carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. Now, of course, depending on how much he cooperates, how, honest they think he's being, and how much information he shares, they're likely to ask the judge to greatly reduce his sentence. But the remaining defendants are now Adam Fox, Barry Croft, Daniel Harris, and Brandon Caserta. And Frank's plea deal also states, quote, the defendant also knows Fox, Croft, Harris, and Caserta were not entrapped based on personal observation and discussions. And it notes more specifically that Fox and Croft initiated the conversations about kidnapping Whitmer. It also says, quote, the defendant also heard Harris and Caserta express similar anti-government sentiments during his private discussions with them when no government informant was present. During all their months of training together, the defendant never heard Fox, Croft, Harris, or Caserta say they were doing anything because informant Dan, informant Steve, or any other informant had advocated it. And then Frank's plea deal also mentions the group's use of an encrypted app, and it states, quote, the defendant understood they were using encrypted communications to conceal discussion of illegal activity from law enforcement. Oh, that's going to leave a mark. These guys are so screwed. I mean, the best deals are given early on. And if Garbin, who flipped first, is getting 6 years in prison, he took that plea deal early last year. And the rest of these guys, they're done. They're going to go away. If they're convicted, they're going away for a long time. And in addition to everything I just mentioned, the plea provides a lot of different details about their activities and their discussions. And it portrays Fox and Croft as like a ringleader and co-ringleader, respectively. It says that they allegedly took tactical training classes together. They put explosives together. They talked about modifying legal projectiles so that they could launch explosive devices. And then they also allegedly discussed when they should take action against the government. And they floated several ideas, such as bombing Michigan state police posts, which, so much for backing the blue, huh? And then Fox suggested that they storm the Michigan Capitol with snipers and 200 men with machine guns. So they didn't think that they had enough people to do something like that. So they scrapped that plan. So prosecutors say that the kidnapping plot basically came together in July of 2020. And that's when they started to surveil the governor's vacation home. And then they constructed what they described as a firing range on one of the men's properties. And it says, quote, defendants constructed a shoot house. It was a quote, shoot house, and used it to practice breaching a residence with firearms. Fox and Croft said it would serve as a mock-up of the governor's home. I mean, come on. This wasn't created on one of the informants' properties. It was on one of theirs. And remember, guys, this was all in response to COVID lockdowns. I can't think of anything more ironic. These guys were so aggro over being placed under lockdown for a few months. And now they're likely to be in actual lockdown for years, if not the remainder of their lives. And here's the thing. I think our government did a piss poor job, an abysmal job of handling the lockdown, especially as compared to other governments. Other governments made it mandatory, but they also gave their citizens the financial means by which to close their businesses, by which to stay home without income from a job. Our citizens, a lot of them would not have had such hostility towards the lockdowns if they and their families were taken care of during the pandemic. I mean, I'm sure some of them would because of just Donald Trump's culture war BS that he was propagating at the time. But I guarantee that most would have been okay with it. They would have felt okay. That's not to make excuses, though, because to go to this extreme of wanting to kidnap and kill a governor, I mean, these guys, they're like a special breed of, not so bright mixed with sociopathy. And they know what they did and they know what they said. So the fact that 2 out of the 6 are already tapping out, it probably tells us everything we need to know about the strength of the government's case. These guys see the writing on the wall and they don't want to spend the rest of their lives in prison. And their attorneys are probably telling them, yeah, you need to cut a deal. This is not good for them. Anyway, thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.